hands off to Jonathan Taylor. Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor made a man miss the line of scrimmage and then runs it into Pater. The one-handed INT. Are you kidding me? Kenny Moore.
What a play by Nyheim Hines. What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another Bring the Juice Colts podcast live stream. We already got 80 of you in here. What is good, everybody? Man, today is the day we all have been waiting for. The Colts have finally figured out their quarterback situation. We're going to talk all about that here over the next hour, or however long we're going to be doing this. But I figured, who better to bring on the podcast than the guy who has been talking about Carson Wentz for a while now, and I'm sure has his own feelings about, this trade. And if any of you, yeah, exactly. This is exactly it. And also, if anyone hasn't seen this guy's reaction to the Carson Wentz trade, then I highly encourage you to go check it out. The link is in the description for that video. It is very funny, and he is Philly Take with RB. RB, how are you today, my man?
Well, fellas, I am rushed with emotions. As you can see, this is a sad day in Philly, maybe a good day as well, but who knows? Who knows for the future, man? Appreciate you guys bringing me on, though. This is the best Colts YouTube channel. I don't care what anyone says, man. I know a lot of people like to talk on the outside, but Colts Nation, I've heard some of you guys are disgusted. You guys should be happy, man. We're going to get into it. Thank you guys for bringing me on. I'm excited to be here.
Appreciate you, man. Listen, this has been a really crazy day, and you have your kind of comments on, without getting into too much detail, based on, the trade itself, with Carson Wentz being traded for a third and a second potential first rounder, later on. How does that trade make you feel when you think about it in the lighter things?
Overall, feels like an ugly divorce. It felt like it was, it had to happen eventually. This has been going on for the last 2 to 3 weeks. We knew Carson Wentz was going to be on the way out. We're hearing Colts, Bears, maybe the Broncos, Panthers. I always thought the Colts were the best situation for him, and we'll talk about that, obviously. But it's a feeling of relief for it to finally be done. But at the same time, it just sucks knowing where our franchise is at. And you can see a well-run organization like the Colts versus where we're at this, this certain point in time.
Cody, yeah. Tell me, Cody, what you felt about when you saw this trade go down. I was waiting for many, many days on this potential scenario happening. It was like, oh man, this is building up so much steam. It has to happen at some point. What were your initial thoughts?
Thank goodness that the rumored trades are over for the Colts. Good grief. All the people with alleged sources and all this, I was just so done with it. By like 2 weeks ago, I was already done with it. So thank goodness something officially happened, so we don't have to talk about the quarterback position this entire offseason now, right? So, yeah, I think for the price, I've said it before, like, I am perfectly good with that price because you are potentially getting your franchise quarterback who's only 28 years old. I believe he just turned 28. Mm-hmm. You're potentially getting him for virtually nothing in the grand scheme of things. So I personally like this move. Again, we don't know what he's going to be like, but you're shooting your shot here. And this is definitely the most risky thing that Ballard and Reich have done in terms of bringing a player in. But overall, man, you can't mess around with your franchise quarterback. You got to find a dynamic guy there. So, and I'm sure we'll get into a little bit about Carson Wentz. I know there's a lot of people just looking at the chat. I'm not looking at it, but looking at all the comments, I guarantee you about half of those are, I hate this move. So I want to kind of talk about it and get your perspective, RB, on Carson Wentz. Obviously some fault has to fall on him, right? He's at the end of the day, he's the one throwing the passes, but there's a lot of stuff that you've dealt with over the past couple of years, whether that be the head coach, whether that be the upper management, whatever it is. There's a lot there that we can dive into, but it's going to be interesting. This is a very, very polarizing player. very, very polarizing trade for Colts fans. I want to hear your initial reactions. So say a Colts fan says, I don't like this trade from the Colts standpoint. What is your take as an Eagles fan? If you were, so put yourself in a Colts fan's perspective, how would you be feeling knowing what you know about Carson Wentz?
I think that Carson Wentz going to the Indianapolis Colts is the perfect change of scenery. I've been saying it all season. It's time. The guy needs a fresh start. Now, like you said, there's fault that falls with every single person in this organization, Carson Wentz included. He had a terrible season. Like you said, he's entering his prime, and in his 5th year to regress the way he did was not a good look. I mean, his decisiveness, his timing, and all that was off. With that being said, this is the perfect opportunity for a quarterback like that to bounce back. And I would actually say that he needs to bounce back because, you know, being one in a top 10 in terms of salary in the league, getting one of the biggest contracts at the time when he was paid, we know that Carson Wentz needs a good support system, and I think the Colts absolutely provide that. I think they have a good structured fan base. They have a good organization. You obviously have a heck of a GM to be able to pull off something like this, even though ours is a dingus as well. But to have Carson Wentz here, I think this is a perfect move for his career. I think it's the best spot for him. And if I'm a Colts fan, I mean, to give up a 3rd-round pick and maybe a second that turns into a first, I mean, you got an absolute steal of a player for that. Again, the future is going to tell how it does, but the way your team is structured, this is exactly what Carson Wentz needs. The Eagles never gave it to him, and now he has it. And I could see why he wanted to go here.
Yeah, I mean, from what we were told by agents and other people of that nature, I mean, it came to a point last night, I think they said that his agent specifically told the Eagles, it's either Colts or nothing. You're either going to not get him to go anywhere and you're going to eat that dead cap, or you're just going to give him to the Colts for whatever the Colts decide to give you, and then you just move on. So, you know, all of the NFL knew that the Eagles were backed up into a corner, and Ballard just played it perfectly. You know, just took away another second just to rub it in Howie Roseman's face a little bit. So, You know, that's pretty funny. But I mean, we can talk a little bit about some of the reasons why we think Wentz didn't perform as well last year, because everyone wants to keep talking about that. Because you said it with us before we went into the stream, is that recency bias has a lot to do with it, right? People only look at 2020 and they say, why are we even trading for that guy? Right? Because, I mean, but they forget that 3 years ago, this guy was an MVP of the league and was out here balling before he ended up getting hurt. So, I mean, I told you before that the ultimate first reason why Wentz's career went into a downward spiral this last year was the guy that is ultimately probably going to replace him, and that's Jalen Hurts. I mean, I think you said you agreed with that, correct?
Absolutely, man. And maybe, unless we go ahead and draft another one, because we've been noted as a quarterback factory. So who knows?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I mean, I would also argue the offensive line I would just say injuries in total from last year just were absolutely demolishing for you guys. I mean, I was seeing you, RB, your soul was being ripped out of your body when your offensive linemen continued to just go down and down and down. And then your receivers went down. Everybody on your offense was down. The only weapon you had was Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders wasn't even used appropriately based off of what you have said. I mean, Stephen A brought up another good point. The Eagles gave up 65 sacks last year. 65 as a team. 50 of those were on Carson Wentz. 50. I mean, who's going to succeed when they get sacked 50 times?
You're absolutely right. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. It goes out for the people. Now, obviously, all the Colts fans might not watch the Eagles games in and out. They might not, look at all the intricacies. But in reality, Carson Wentz, although he had failure, and I think one thing led after the other, it was more so just like an organization problem. Listen, just like you mentioned, 50 sacks Carson Wentz got sacked 50 times. I think in the 12 games he played, I think we had 11 different offensive line combinations. No fluidity there. Miles Sanders, most games didn't get over 12, 13, 14 carries. He was our best weapon on offense. At one point, we had one of the best receivers in the NFL that nobody knew, named Travis Fulgham. He was taken out of the mix after 4 weeks. Jason Peters came back after being hurt, and just one thing led after the other. The organization didn't handle it. And at the same time, like you just mentioned, guess who was looking over his shoulder on every pass, just like it's been for the last 4 years, except this time it wasn't Nick Foles. It was Jalen Hurts. And at the same time, we felt obligated to have to play him because our dingus of a GM wanted to draft him in the second round. So, all this stuff coming together at the same time, Carson's getting ripped and ripped and ripped every single day. It all stacked up. And again, Carson has fought, but there are a lot more problems. There are a lot more weaknesses that the average person might not see. And here, a lot of those things are fixed. So I think it's a good situation.
Yeah. And I wanted to go back to something we talked about, RB, off air. You talked about how you don't feel like the Eagles organization really gave him a fair chance, right? They never fully backed him up. And I thought that was an interesting point that you made, that you felt like the Eagles didn't do that. Now, and I know for me, like I said this on Twitter, but I know, like, for me, I was in a job situation a little over a year ago, right, where I'm in a similar job now, right, but it was at a different place. And I felt like I wasn't fully supported in that job, right? I felt like I was always had somebody looking over my shoulder. I always had this, always had that. I never could get on board fully with what was going on, right, from upper management, right? But and all those things, all those factors came together. And ultimately, I would say I wasn't healthy mentally. I wasn't healthy where I needed to be everywhere, right? And I look at that. I think a lot of people forget these guys are football players too, right? Or are humans too. These football players are humans too. So I want to kind of talk to you about that. Like, what is your opinion on that? How much do you think, obviously Frank Reich and him have a great relationship from when they were in Philadelphia. I mean, the stats back that up as well, that they work well together. How huge do you think it'll be from a mental health standpoint for Carson Wentz as a human being to just go to a new change of scenery with a guy that really has his back?
I think it's career saving. I do. Philly's a tough place to play. The fans are on you. One day they love you. The next day they hate you. It just all comes together. But for Carson Wentz to go to a situation like this, he needs a fresh start. I mean, the guy hasn't spoken up in the last 3 weeks, month. He's only posted one thing since even our new head coach was hired, and it wasn't even about him. He's been getting ripped after ripped. He needs a new change of scenery. He needs an organization that is going to believe in him, that is going to surround him with talent in terms of wide receiver, never giving him a sufficient O-line. And even when our O-line was sufficient, they got hurt. So he didn't have that. Not using your running back the right way, keeping him on the field too long. There's a whole bunch of things that stack up. The way Doug Peterson coached this year, that's another factor. And again, everything just crashed to the ground. But I don't feel as if Carson was ever fully respected with the organization, all the way from Nick Foles, building his statue, keeping him around, fan base half and half, and, just not going out and getting him the weapons. You know what I mean? It was just I don't even think the organization ever talked to Carson Wentz. I really don't. And I just don't think he had everything he needed to succeed. Could he have done better with what he had? Sure. But you know what? Like you said, these guys are human, man. And Carson has been ripped a lot. I think that's why he's kind of taking a hiatus here. He needs a mental break from it all, man. And this is the spot that he needs to go to try to revive himself,
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, people forget the mental aspect of the football game. It's not just all physical. We know Carson has had his fair share of injuries, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's injury prone. He's had some bad luck with, the most recent one of, Jadeveon Clowney hitting him on the backside of his freaking head and nearly giving him brain damage. That was rough. He had to come back from that. And like you said, just when you're never supported or you don't feel like you're supported in that environment, then yeah, you really don't become the best form of yourself. And people just seem to forget that. They just think you just go out there, you're the same all the time, you throw football, that's it. No, it's not about that. And, the more I talk about it with Carson coming to Indy, the more I just fall in love with the idea of Carson Wentz getting so much better and back to that form. Because, first thing you think of when he comes to Indy, offensive line. Offensive line for Indianapolis, despite missing a left tackle, is still one of the top 5 best offensive lines in football. They gave up 19 sacks last year to an immobile quarterback of Phillip Rivers. I mean, Carson Wentz could get sacked 30 times. I think he would still rather get sacked 30 times than 50 times. I think he'll appreciate being up about 60% more of the time. I mean, that's the first thing you think of. And then, the Frank Reich connection. I mean, this guy is just falling into the absolute most beautiful spot he could ever be in. And I just couldn't be more happier for the guy right now.
Yeah, I want to quickly reply to what you said there about injury prone, because I know that's going to come up a lot. It's going to come up and never go away. The second the guy goes out with a sprained ankle, everyone's going to say, yeah, he's injury prone, right? Get him out of here. Listen, man,
God.
Here's what I'll say to that. The first injury, well, in his rookie year, he had a little something that was nagging him, but let's take us through what happened. He was named starter 10 days before the season. What did he do? He came in with nothing around him and won 7 games. That was an impressive bout for me. The next year, he goes and looks like an MVP candidate. He obviously had a terrible injury, and I know that hurt Carson watching Nick take the reins and win his Super Bowl. Would we have won with Carson? Who knows? There's a good chance because he was playing out of his mind. Going forward after that, obviously the next year, Nick Foles did it again. And the next year, that is when people really started to put their foot down, okay? Carson Wentz played a full 16-game season. It is very unfortunate he went out in that Seattle game in the first quarter, but that was a dirty hit, man. You can go back, and I'm sure you guys will end up looking at it. It was a dirty hit. Most guys would get injured in that situation. It really sucks for Carson. I don't think it's fair. And then going to this last season, Carson got hit he got sacked 50 times, got hit countless amount of times, and he was healthy for the entire season until he got benched, obviously. So I don't like this whole narrative of being injury prone. I think the guy's fought through a lot. He hasn't always had the best O-line help. So that's really what I'll say to that.
Cody and I know what it's like to deal with the fans who say somebody's injury prone. Also, there's over 150 of you in here right now. Make sure you guys like the stream if you haven't already. It helps push this stream out to more people. We want to talk to more people about this. But yeah, we have Paris Campbell on our team, and for the past 2 years, he has had very little time to, be able to play because, for one, his first year had a bunch of lower body injuries that were the result of his body not being right for the NFL that year. Then he finally gets right and then gets his knee blown out on a tackle at the knee, and just his whole knee is just destroyed. And then people are saying, oh my gosh, he's injury prone again. Like, I would love to see you take a shot, a 20 mile per hour shot to the knee by a 230-pound man, and you tell me whether or not you're actually going to get up from that. Please tell me.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that does affect you mentally. It's got to, man. I mean, sorry to bring up old wounds here, but it affected Andrew Luck mentally over years. He just didn't say anything about it. Yeah.
Yep.
So those hits add up after a while. They do. All of a sudden you're looking around and you're just like, am I going to get hit? Like, I totally understand that. But Derek, going back to what you said, like, I think it's such a perfect situation because he has the offensive line and we got to figure out left tackle. I think there's a lot of ways we're going to do that. He has Jonathan Taylor, who was the second best running back at the end of the year in the second half of the season to just Derrick Henry. So he's got the running game. He's got the offensive line. He's got some solid wide receivers, depending what we do with T.Y. Hilton. I think there's a good chance we go get a couple guys in free agency to maybe help out there. So overall, from an offensive standpoint, really, besides left tackle, quarterback was the biggest need. It was the biggest glaring hole that we had. So I'm really excited to see him paired with Frank Reich and just that combination that they have, right? Because I was listening. I don't really listen to Colin Cowherd a whole lot because some of his takes are kind of iffy, but
he's such a fanboy. He shifts from one team to the next on who he loves to hate and love. It's
one thing I do appreciate about him. He's always kind of been on the Colts side, right? He's always had good things to say about Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, but talking about some of those, the most successful like teams. What's one thing that he had a couple different things that like make teams successful and perennial playoff Super Bowl contenders. And one of them was that relationship with the head coach and the quarterback. And we know that Carson and Frank Reich have a very, very good relationship. So talk to me about that. And basically looking at his 2017 season was his best season by far. How good do you think it could potentially that marriage could be again for Carson Wentz moving forward?
Yeah. Again, I think it's exactly the dose of what Carson needs. I think when you look at 2017, you look at the creativity of the offense, even going into years after that, people tend to forget Carson had over 20 touchdown passes and less than 7 interceptions for 3 straight seasons. And after Frank Reich left, it was a big blow. Our offense did not nearly look the same. It almost looks like it's regressed each year. But Carson still held up his end of the bargain, at least for what he was able to do. And having that element of Frank Reich, all these guys that we brought in after, and, Mike Rowe and Press Taylor, which you guys are going to know a lot about now. It seems like we kind of traded like people this offseason. It's weird.
Yeah, but we steal your quarterback. You steal a bunch of our coaches.
Right.
You take some of your coaches. You know how it is.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a weird interaction going on here, but Frank Reich and Carson Wentz, if there's one guy that I believe to get that talent out of Carson Wentz, it's Frank Reich. And I'll even add on an additional point, and you guys might want to keep this in mind. I don't think, look, I'm not going to say it's positive Carson ever gets back to 2017 Carson, but you don't need 2017 Carson. How about 2018 Carson? How about 2019 Carson? Yeah. With the way that your team is structured, all you need Carson to do, and from what I've seen with the Colts, is have a quarterback that comes in, knows the job, knows the role, and it just keeps it simple, man. You don't need the extravagant Carson. He's going to have a couple plays a game where you're like, wow, did he just do that? Mm-hmm. But the whole issue this season was Doug Peterson, and he kind of lost himself, and Carson got out of that. He got out of the mechanics. His timing was off. He was getting hit left and right. And at one point, he just looked like a chicken without a head running around, and he just, he lost everything. I think you just got to simplify this down. I don't think you need a crazy 2017 Carson, but I would love to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I totally agree. You don't need 2017 Carson. If anything, we just get 70% of what 2017 Carson was. That's still above average, if not a really good quarterback. No question about it. I mean, I could argue, and RB, you can tell me whether or not you agree with this or not. I could make the argument that when it comes to structural wise, this offense currently, or what this Colts offense can become after this offseason, is going to be better talent-wise than what the 2017 offense was for the Eagles. I mean, obviously they had Zach Ertz. I'm not saying that, they didn't have the best players. Zach Ertz at that time was probably the second best tight end in the league behind Gronkowski. That was the big argument. I think Ertz was the second best one. Which is ironic because you guys are probably going to end up cutting him. And a lot of people have said when they cut him, just bring him over to the Colts for cheap. I mean, that's a weapon that Wentz knows how to find, and he'd be cheap and he's good. But I mean, am I wrong in saying that the Colts offense can be on par, if not better than what Wentz had in 2017?
I think you're right. I do. If you look at our offense of 2017, there still weren't these dynamic playmakers. I mean, it was Alshon Jeffrey playing the whole season with a torn labrum. You had Torrey Smith, who was on a 1-year deal. I mean, you signed Garrett Blunt. These guys weren't the top of the NFL. We've never given Carson a top receiver. We've never given him a top this. Now, Zach Ertz, don't get me wrong. I mean, Zach Ertz was at the peak of his game, and unfortunately he has fallen off. I think that would be a great signing for Indianapolis. Probably could get him for cheaper after this past year. But I think Carson's going to have a lot of weapons to work with. And again, the big thing is I think this Colts offense will be dynamic. It's the only thing is his character and how the guys mesh with him. As long as they give him a chance, and as long as he proves himself as a leader, which I think Frank Reich will definitely help develop with, I think it's going to be great. And you guys have it. You guys have the potential, based off where you're at and my understanding of your cap situation, to be a threat.
And Cody, give him the speech of player accountability in this locker room, because Darius Leonard just put out a tweet just a few days ago saying, and this didn't just apply to defensive guys. This said, we do not want you if you are not ready to come here and work your ass off and be the best player you can be. If not, we don't want you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, and then that's why I have like faith, like in whatever Ballard and Reich do. Like, they know the type of Reich especially knows the type of player that Carson is. We wouldn't bring him in if he was a bum and he didn't work. You know what I mean? So, RB, I had two things for you. First off, I was looking at that Buffalo game when the Colts played, and I just couldn't help but thinking, looking at Josh Allen, I was like, man, Philip Rivers had such a great game, but if we could just get a quarterback that could make impromptu plays, off script type of plays, man, that would just do such a world of difference. Well, we've seen that. It's been kind of Carson Wentz's bread and butter at times, right? He's really, really good off script. So first off, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then also going back to what we talked about the change of scenery. I mean, it's got to be, you said you don't need 100% of what Carson Wentz was, right, in 2017. So I wanted to get your thoughts potentially on, maybe there was a lot, I'm guessing there had to be, he was a second overall pick, a lot of pressure in Philadelphia, right, to be the guy. The thing with Indianapolis is like they committed decent resources to get him, but it's not like he has a lot less expectations, I guess, based off of all the Colts fans we've heard. He has a lot less expectations coming in. Do you think that will help him mentally as well?
Yeah, just starting on that point right there, I really do. I think Carson's gone through a lot mentally, especially with the injury and the injuries over the year. And I just think Carson Wentz, he needs to go to a situation like Indy. Like, this is why I didn't think he would go to Chicago, because I don't view Chicago as being a contender like that. I view Indianapolis as being a team that is well structured. You've built the foundation. Now you just got to plug Carson in. You got to plug a quarterback in. And again, the whole thing with Frank Reich, that is exactly what is needed from a guy like Carson Wentz. I don't know. I think this is the perfect situation. If there was a team that I'm looking at, I don't see why Colts fans would be mad at all with this trade.
You're going to have those regardless, man. Whoever we decided to go with. I mean, the amount of comments we get, Wentz is trash. Darnold, why would you want to get him? He's proven nothing. Why go for a rookie quarterback? You already have one on the roster. Like, it's like, I can't win with these people. I can't.
I'm kind of the belief it's like, okay, well, if you draft a quarterback, you trade up, that's not a slam dunk guarantee either, right? You've seen so many draft busts that's happened, even, throwing back to that 2018 draft. I mean, how many quarterbacks were taken and how many of those guys are actually like legitimate, like stars in the league? I mean, sometimes that can be kind of a crapshoot. So, and you didn't give up a whole lot. I feel like you would have had to give up more to get Sam Darnold. So where the Colts are, Chris Ballard has said, I believe our window to contend for Super Bowls is now. It's starting to crack open just now. Carson Wentz isn't like an old player. He's only 28. So I think right now it's like it gives you a good chance with how good of a roster you have to go and compete, right? But also you still have room. Like, if you don't win this year or next year, he's only 30 years old. You got a lot more time with him if he does perform to the level we hope he can. So I think it's the perfect move, quite honestly. It's the best move, in my opinion, based off of all the other quarterbacks you could have added in free agency. I think it's the best move.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. There was a stat, I pulled it up here earlier. I saw it says there's not a quarterback drafted in the first round from 2009 to 2016 that is still with his original team. So that just goes to show you, I mean, how these guys are replaceable. And you're right when you're talking about the pressure in Philly. I think one thing just adds up from another. Like I said, I just don't feel like the organization has always had his back 100%. Sure, they do things to help him, but then they go, like, let me ask you this. And before I get to that, a couple years ago, you're coming off, you're in the next season coming off potentially an MVP season. He would have won the MVP if he was healthy. You have guys in the locker room throwing shade and going to reporters. And I mean, you could just see there were flaws with Carson Wentz's relationship with the Eagles. Now, how much of that is credited to him? Well, that's something we're going to find out as he progresses in Indy. But going after that, it's just like, let me ask Colts Nation a question. If you're struggling for a couple years to really show this organization that you're the man, like you are the man, and finally they get rid of Nick Foles, they say, thank you for everything. Here's $130 million. You ink that paper up. And after one season, without consulting with you, they draft a quarterback. Not just a 6th round quarter. I'm talking about a 2nd round quarterback. When we had needs upon needs. We needed another playmaker. There were guys you could have gotten free agency. So I mean, that's just a pure stab in the back. And then the way that they handled the benching this year, week 12, like I don't know. You could just see there was no connection between these guys. And really, like I said, how would you feel if that was you? I mean, the guy's continually been stabbed in the back. Could have got DeAndre Hopkins for a 2nd round and a 4th round. You save that pick, you get Jalen Hurts. You could have traded up in front of the Cowboys to get CeeDee Lamb. You save that pick, you get Jalen Hurts. You see what I mean? There's a common theme here. And other than that, I don't know if you guys know this, but we haven't drafted a Pro Bowler other than Carson Wentz in the last 7 years. So
I saw your tweet about that. I've seen you do that. Yeah. And Ballard just did he did one better. He gave up his 1st rounder last year to get an all-pro and defensive tackle to Forrest Buckner, who last season was the 2nd best defensive tackle in the league. I mean, and here's the thing. I want to remind people, and I don't know how familiar you are, RB, with the Colts quarterback situation right now, but it isn't like Wentz's job is completely safe. I'm not saying that for people. If anything, there's a good portion of Colts fans who absolutely should love this trade, and here's why. Because Wentz comes in, I don't know whether or not Jacoby Brissett's going to stay here or not. From what I've been told, it sounds like he's not, but Ballard's not saying anything about it because he wants to try to keep his value up by, just telling people how great of a teammate he is and help up his value a little bit in the locker room, which is exactly who he is. He's a great locker room guy. But he would come in and battle with Jacob Eason because a lot of people kept saying, why can't Ballard just go with Jacob Eason? Well, the reason being is he said, we like Jacob Eason, but he is not ready. He is just not developed enough yet. We want to give him another year or two to understand and learn the mechanics, and then we'll seriously consider him being the quarterback. I think this would be great because behind, you're going to have Carson Wentz and Jacob Eason both learning. They're both going to compete in training camp. Right now, Carson Wentz is the presumptive starter. He knows that coming in. The job is his to lose, basically it. But if he flunks or if he gets hurt, then Jacob Eason is there to come and step into that role. That's why I think this is great. If Wentz fails, okay, great. You tried. It didn't work. Ditch him out. You got Jacob Eason to go forward with it. You're great. But if Carson Wentz continues, then you got 2 solid young quarterbacks that really work that way. I think this, again, people kind of don't look at it that way, but I think that's why it's another great thing for Wentz is his job is not guaranteed. He's going to be the starter, but he still has to compete to win that spot. And I think that's also what he needs coming to Indy.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And let me just say this, I think that's a great point. And there's a thing about competition, and we'll talk about this as we go on here, because there's still definitely some things in terms of character about Carson. Like, I don't think he handled this situation 100% right. But I think the dynamic of having a quarterback like Eason, where this isn't a guy you put a 1st round pick into. You didn't put a 2nd round pick. You didn't sign him for a ton of money, where it's like Carson's coming into now he has to compete again. Like you said, there's just that notion of like, this is your job to lose. And it almost never felt in Philly like the Eagles were trying to let Carson feel that way. It was almost like, all right, we'll draft the quarterback in the 2nd round. All right, we'll keep Nick around. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of got to his mental as well. I do.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Rams, right? What they did with Stafford, and also, like you talked about, you didn't invest a ton into Jacob Eason. Well, you didn't really, in the grand scheme of things, invest a ton into getting Carson Wentz either. So it's like, if he doesn't work out, you're down, a 3rd and 2nd round pick. Odds are you weren't going to find a franchise quarterback in those rounds. It just normally doesn't happen that way. So I'm perfectly good with that, man. I really am. Because you're giving yourself a shot. He has all the talent to be a franchise quarterback. So
And
I feel
Cody, I'll piggyback off of that argument. Another reason why I like what they just did is it's precisely what you just said. Those rounds, it kept Ballard his important pick at number 21. He kept it. And he kept this second rounder too. So he has freedom to now do what he wants to do in the draft. And he can now do things the way he wants to. He doesn't have to throw away his draft capital to go get the quarterback now. He can invest that into a rookie left tackle where we don't have to pay him for 4 years. And you're just going to invest into a young guy that you can groom. Or if you don't go left tackle in the first round, you can go edge rusher, which we've said we absolutely need. You can go with a cornerback because we may not get Xavier Rhodes back. You know, there's a lot of different ways that Ballard can attack the draft now that he doesn't have to worry about investing into a quarterback. It's perfect. Yeah. It's exactly what we wanted.
Let me just say, like, Colts fans might not see this from an Eagles fan perspective. They might not, follow Eagles people, watch their channels and all that stuff, media, all that stuff. The Eagles got absolutely fleeced in this deal. There is no telling about that. We were asking for a first rounder, then we were asking for 2 first rounders. We were trying to drive up our own price when in reality, Carson had all the leverage. And I'm not going to rant about the Eagles on here because that's my job, but I'm just telling you guys, be grateful because the situation that Carson is going into, like you said, whether he succeeds or fails, you guys got him for an absolute fleece job. I mean, it's a fireable offense, but what's new with the Eagles right
Folks, now? The Eagles guy is telling you. The Eagles guy is telling you. Listen to it.
You
don't take our word for it. Take his.
You tune into a Philly media station. I've been listening to it all day. I mean, everybody is just laughing. And it's a laughing stock at this point. You guys got an absolute steal for what you gave up. Your GM knows what he's doing. And like you said, you can address other needs now. You didn't really give up anything essential right now. So,
RB, why don't you attack this comment here for me real quick? I don't know where to begin with the BS-ery of this. I don't.
All right. So let me try to, I see what he's saying. Like like I said, there is some truth in that. Carson did feel some type of way over the years, but you can't just neglect the fact that this organization never fully gave him what he needed. If you're supposed to be the man, if you're paid and you're supposed to be the franchise guy, but at the same time, right, someone's stealing from you, someone's nagging you, pulling you back. I mean, how are you supposed to succeed if you want to believe that an organization wants you to go 5 steps forward, but at the same time, they're the ones pulling you 2 steps back. Now, like I said, a lot's going to be said about how Carson plays in Indy and how he handles himself. And I do think there's some validity to that. Like I said, I don't think he handled this situation perfectly. I do not. I think he could have came out and said something, even though I don't think he wanted to derail his own value. But he was quiet for a long time, and I don't think that was right. But at the same time, I also can't blame him because every single day for the last 3 weeks, this guy's been getting ripped. I'm talking about stories, clickbait, other things. They're just talking about his person now. I mean, this guy has a young daughter. If you guys don't know, he's raising a newborn daughter with his wife. He's got other priorities as well, and he's also trying to maintain his health as well.
Yeah. I mean, and Cody, we know this from being around. We understand Reich and Ballard's mentality. It is about player accountability. And that's the great thing too, is that, I know Frank Reich is the Carson Wentz guy, right? He really loves Carson Wentz the same way he loved Phillip Rivers. I mean, it was the same way. Reich is never one to say shy away from pointing out blame to himself and to other people, saying he's not going to sugarcoat it, and he's not going to skip corners like what Doug Peterson and the Eagles tried to do a lot with the situation looming last year. He actually will say how it is, and if Carson Wentz doesn't perform, Ballard will remind him. Ballard will remind him because Ballard does not take BS. Ballard is not going to sugarcoat anything. He will tell him, if you don't show up and you don't perform, your job will be lost. I promise you it will be.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that comment that you just had up there was really good too, because not once did this man ever come out to the media and say, I'm not happy. this happened. I don't like this.
I got 200 of you in the stream and only 45 likes on the stream. Come on,
Yo, everybody smash that like button, man.
Everybody smash the like button.
Smash that like button, man.
Everybody smash the like button. I appreciate all of you being in here. I greatly appreciate it.
You got to get this to 100 likes, man.
Yeah, we got to get it to 100 likes, man. We got over 174 people just on YouTube, man.
Wow.
Come on, I need to see it.
Come on, man.
Appreciate you all.
Yeah. Carson never came out publicly and say anything, and I'll give him credit for that. He could have came out after that second round draft pick and said, you know, I don't understand what the vision is, this and that. There's nice ways to put it. He came out the next day and said, you know, I think Jalen's a good guy. He's a good quarterback, and I'm excited for the competition. As of late, his silence kind of speaks in that he didn't want to be here. But again, I can't really blame him for that. But he has not once came out every game. He comes out, and there's a thing about him saying the same things like, you know, we got to look at the tape. I'm going to keep doing the same things. Like, I want to be that explosive quarterback. I don't think he had any guidance, though. But yeah, he never really came out and trashed anyone publicly. And even when there were reports against him, and I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of honestly, in certain ways, when we had Ryan Grigson and all those people with Andrew Luck, it kind of gives me similar vibes, man. Like, you know, where it's like, oh my goodness, like Andrew Luck obviously doesn't have a great team around him. He never came out and said anything. He's the type of player that, like,
he was so nice to a fault, dude. Yeah. He was so nice to a fault. He was getting sacked 50 times a year, but yet never said anything bad about his offensive line. Never. We all knew that it wasn't his fault, but he never said that. Never. And he was so nice to a fault. It was hilarious.
Yeah. And I think maybe Carson's similar in that way, like where he's just naturally a nice guy. And, you know, he wants to be loyal to the team that took a chance and drafted him. He doesn't want to go throughout the organization. That's not the type of guy he is, you know? No. So I get that. But also, you know, you talked about it a little bit at the same time. Maybe he does need to come out and say some things sometimes, you know, if he doesn't like the way the organization is run. But I can't fault him for that, honestly. Because it's just like, if you're a nice guy like that and you don't want to like start drama, I totally get that.
Yeah. And again, there was just, I feel like before anything even happened in that nature, there were still things painted against him because that's what Philadelphia does. That's what the fan base does. Half the people split against you. We saw it with McNabb. We saw it with Wentz. I mean, it was the same thing. And again,
I mean, we saw what they just did to your new head coach. I mean, you saw what they just did. Yeah, I mean, they didn't even give him 30 minutes into his own presser the first time he's had a head coaching job and doesn't know what he's saying and immediately saying, wow, this is the guy you hire? Wow. Like, Jesus. Give the man like some time to actually coach the team first.
Right. Maybe a practice.
Yeah, right.
Maybe,
exactly. Right.
Yeah, that's who Philly is. And, you know, I mean, I don't want to come out here and say Carson Wentz is built for Philly. He's not built for Philly. I do think that his background, though, is kind of a bit different coming from North Dakota. And, you know, maybe he never had to handle a situation like Philadelphia. I don't know. But, I mean, the guy always said the right things. But when they were needed, obviously this year was just bad all around. So I can't just put it on him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a professional, man. I mean, I get that. Like, that's the same way with Frank Reich. Like, he's never going to go throw a guy under the bus, right? He's always going to say, we just got to be better. He's not not that guy. So I get that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. The Eagles media is just insane. I mean, they are just, they are a whole nother level of petty. I mean, it really did infuriate me seeing the amount of people, and especially the first guy who even commented on it and made that video viral was an Eagles media person and saying, you know, just, wow, I can't believe I'm even listening to this. Like, you don't have to listen to it. Walk away, go somewhere else. Like, I feel so bad for him because, you know, I suffer with anxiety when it comes to being put in situations where I know this is going to go out to millions of people. Like, I think I sent you, RB, a video a couple weeks ago when people were asking about Sirianni. Is this what we expect from him? No, I showed you a video from when he was in the locker room with all of those guys. His speech was perfect. He understood how it went. He knows how to interact with players. It's just he's a head coach now. He's in a first presser like this, he never had to do this. He never had to do this before. He's in a whole new headspace right now, and he's trying to get comfortable. Let the man at least coach for a few months before you start saying whether or not this guy's a total bum or not. Yeah. I know EDP had his views on it. I certainly know that. I honestly, dude, I think you are one of the few Eagles podcasters and influencers that didn't immediately just denounce this man. I honestly am surprised. No. I'm surprised. You're one of the only ones that it's incredible to me.
Exactly. And
I hate you, bro. I hate you.
He always
I hate you so much. He always changes his name and his profile picture in the middle of it just to be like that.
Gotta love it, man. But hey, I agree. There's one thing about a man, like I acknowledge, I poked some fun with it. Yeah, he was nervous. Of course he was. But, Philly is just like that. And I would actually attest that over the last couple weeks, I mean, the media is a big part of how this thing progressed so fast, if we would have kept Carson Wentz, the dead cap hit next year, I think was $15 million. This year it's $33.8 million. I mean, it's just terrible. There was no even chance of this guy coming back because of how they literally just ripped him through the coals every single day. I'm hoping good luck to Carson Wentz. I hope he gets a fair share in Indy. And I think it's the best situation for him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I've been telling people on Twitter for like the last 2 hours, like you see all these Colts players excited as hell to bring Carson Wentz into this group. Like, why can't we have that excitement? As fans, Can we just give these players the benefit of the doubt that they're excited to bring him in, like showing him what it's like to be part of a true brotherhood? I think that's another thing also that goes into it for Carson Wentz is, like you said, guys like Alshon Jeffrey and other people, anonymous players coming out to reporters saying they don't like Carson Wentz. Well, right. Here's the thing. Our locker room, nothing is shared secretly. They will let you know whether or not they like you or they hate you. And most of the time, if you just show up to work and you're working hard and you're not making it about yourself, you're about the team, they will support you through anything. Doesn't matter if Carson Wentz is done in 2 years. Doesn't matter. They'll still love the guy. They're going to move. He's going to move on and they'll support him, wish him luck, all of that. I think the locker room is just so much more different with this team than what it was in Philly for many of those years.
Yeah, and it's like I said earlier, it's needed. He absolutely needed it. You knew the time was up. I mean, the beginning of this last season, I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that not only Doug Peterson, but Carson Wentz would be gone as well. But like I said, Carson needs a team around him. He needs to be in a structured organization. And I'm hoping to see that there's a lot more communication when it comes to Carson, Chris Ballard, Frank Reich. I hope there's an open communication there because I'll tell you right now, Carson hates Howie Roseman's guts. Guy wouldn't even answer his phone calls. He wouldn't even answer his phone calls at one point.
Really?
They painted this whole thing out to be Carson Wentz hates Doug. That was the first step. And then they said, okay, well, now that you fired Doug Peterson, that's justification for bringing Carson Wentz back. However, me being a logical person, I looked at this and I'm like, why would Carson want to come back to the team that keeps stabbing him in the back? And more importantly, the man upstairs, Howie Roseman, that keeps stabbing him in the back. So now it's like, why did we fire Doug then? If Carson's gone and Howie's still here. You see what I mean? There's just flaws. And I hope he has a much better situation.
Ryan Grigson was like that too. Cody, you remember what Robert Mathis said about
I remember. Mathis was on Pat McAfee's show, right? And they asked, I think AJ Hawk was talking to him. He's on his show as well. He was asking him what changed, like from the culture, because Pat McAfee, remember, played with Peyton Manning for a few years. He's like, what changed? And Robert Mathis said, Ryan Grigson. And he's like, okay, why? He said, what he did is he just painted over all the walls of all our history, and basically said, I'm going to change the culture. Well, the team went 2-14, but that was like, you look back a year before that, and they were one of the most winningest franchises like in the last decade. So that is very similar, I feel like, in certain ways. Maybe to a little bit lesser degree, maybe how he's a little bit more subtle, but it's starting to show now. You know, you can only hide it for so long, right? The cracks are starting to show in Philadelphia. So as a person who kind of just came out of that a few years ago, I totally can relate with what you're saying. It's a hot mess right now.
Yeah. And then, like I said, it's just one domino after the other. I still don't think the biggest one's come yet, but the Colts, you can just see the sufficiency of your organization versus ours. It took you a few years. You built the thing back up from the ground up, and you have everything you need for a quarterback to be plugged in and succeed. So I would say my message to Colts fans would be, give it some time, relax, see how the guy handles himself, because this is his first time in a different locker room. He's not a guy that's been around to a lot of places. He's not a guy that has worked with a bunch of different people. So I'd say just give him some time and just see how things go, man. You know, you can't be out on the guy all of a sudden. Maybe you won't understand it, but you guys got a heck of a deal for Carson Wentz. You should be very happy today.
I am very happy, man. I am very, very happy. You know, the more I talk about it, the more it just it reminds me of how happy I am about it. I think that was the issue, right? Everyone said recency bias. I mean, one of our friends, Zach Hicks, he absolutely despises Carson Wentz and wanting to come to Indy. He's just, you know, a numbers guy, and he understands football. I'm not going to say he doesn't. I mean, he has his reasons, but, you know, I was talking to my brother while I was at work too, and he's like, Derek, that was the one guy I did not want to get. And I'm like, I had to call this man because I know he's probably sad. I'm like, look, I gotta remind you of the positives of this, because ultimately what you get from Carson, it's a high risk, but it's a very high reward kind of personality here. Because, you know, it was different with Sam Darnold, right? Because Sam Darnold, we knew the prospect was good, but we've never seen him reach the climax to the point where we could judge a ceiling. We would just look at potential. We already know the ceiling of a Carson Wentz. And we said the same thing with Xavier Rhodes, Cody. Remember what we said about this? That Xavier Rhodes, we knew his ceiling. We knew where he was at the peak of his career. If we could even tap into a little bit of that, then he could revitalize his career. Xavier Rhodes did that. Xavier Rhodes did it. He was one of the best corners in the NFL last year. All it took was coming to Indy and reuniting with an old coach. Look at what Carson Wentz about to do. Phillip Rivers, the same way. Phillip Rivers threw 23 touchdowns and 20 interceptions in 2019, goes to throw 25 and 11 this last year, and was the third most efficient quarterback in the whole NFL. Just goes to show you, we bring these old players back to these old coaches, and these coaches just know how to use them.
I mean, even Trey Burton to a smaller degree, right? Like, Bears fans are saying that dude's trash. I can't believe you got him. Well, you know, he wasn't like a world beater, but he was still efficient. He scored multiple touchdowns for us on the ground.
Cody, look who's in the chat.
Oh,
boy,
my
UCF
God.
Jaguar. Oh man.
God.
Hey, UCF. You hear a bunch of people saying that Lawrence is not their number one quarterback.
Oh, he's been mad about that because people.
I bet you are. I've heard at least 3 different teams say that Zach Wilson is their number one guy over Lawrence. Just saying.
Fun.
We
don't have to talk about quarterback anymore. I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm just glad we don't have to talk about it anymore, please.
Michael, get out of here.
Michael. And we got JDW again with a $5 super chat. Appreciate you guys with the super chats, man. Great, very appreciative. Freaking love the heck out of all y'all. Hey, appreciate you, JDW. JDW, you got to make a video, man. You got to make a video on this and send it to me, man. You got to get it moving. Zach Wilson is trash. We all know Michael's view on Zach Wilson. He absolutely despises Zach Wilson. I actually think he has him ranked like the 4th or 5th best quarterback in this draft, which is kind of funny.
Dude's nuts. I don't know.
He is funny. I'll tell you that. Oh man.
Unfortunately, man, I feel like I have a gut feeling that the Eagles are going to go with another quarterback. I have a feeling, man, and that is the day I don't watch any more games until Howie's gone.
So are you starting on that now? Are you starting on that now that Howie's the reason you don't watch any more games?
If we draft a quarterback in the first round, I
can't wait for that
Come
reaction.
join us, man. Join us.
Yeah. You got it. You're going live for that, right? You gonna go live for that?
I have to go live, but I don't know if I can because I might get banned off YouTube because I might absolutely lose my mind.
The Eagles are gonna copyright claim all your stuff. That's it.
Oh my god! I mean, it's just sad. I mean, if you guys are accepting fan applications,
Hey, we'll take it. We got you.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
dude. Cody and I are gonna be doing that live too. I mean, we're gonna have fun for that first round, but yeah, I feel like it's gonna be one of those situations from the 2018 draft where that number 4 and that number 6 pick were just complete like shocks to everyone. I feel like it's gonna be another one of those for the Eagles, man. I cannot wait for that pick. I'm just going to be waiting for that just to see your reaction. I am going to love it.
We have a
pick or not.
We have an inherent joke here among us Eagles people that Howie's going to go with a place kicker at number 6. What's I forget her name? Sarah Fuller. Yeah, she's on our big board. Yeah, at number 6.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
It's something Howie would do. Like I said, his middle name is quarterback controversy. There's just
I want to show this picture that Michael sent me of Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz, but I won't do it because we'll get demonetized. But it basically has Phillip Rivers and it says upgrade, and then it's Carson Wentz says F it, go back.
Oh my word.
Man,
don't count him out, man.
Y'all are just crazy.
Hey, I'll admit though, it's the one thing I will say. It's going to be weird seeing Carson Wentz in blue and white. Honestly,
yeah, it will be weird seeing him in those colors. It certainly will be weird. But who will wear number 11, Pittman or Wentz? I don't know. You probably give it to the quarterback because normally that's how you do it. But then again, I mean, Michael Pittman was there first, so it just depends how they'll do it. I'm sure,
bro. There was a Photoshop of Carson Wentz with the number 12, and I was like, don't trigger Colts fans.
Please do not trigger Colts Nation with that one, please. Look, even if he does decide to do number 12, it's not for, sake of, wanting to be the next Andrew Luck. He's just saying, it's just the number that I was assigned. That's what we do. I swear to you, the Indy media and Indy fans will turn exactly into Phillies fans. I'm not kidding you. They will trash this man simply for wearing the number 12 on his jersey. I promise you. They hate it.
Let's just not do that. Let's not.
Yeah,
please.
can we just make him like number 1 or something? That's easy, right? Number 1 quarterback. It's pretty easy.
I'd like it.
Yeah.
Wentz can have it for $1 million. He gives $1 million of his contract back to the Colts, and just that way he can have number 12. Oh man,
man, you guys take some of our dead cap hit. I'll give you any damn number you want, man.
There is not a player left on your team that you could tell me to take in order to get rid of some of that dead cap. There is not one, unless you're giving me like Darius Slay. But you ain't about to give up Darius Slay because y'all just went and got him.
Did you forget who our Yeah. Did you forget who our GM was?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, he's not Bill O'Brien, stupid. I guess I should say that. I mean, it's a pretty high bar to go that high, but I mean, yeah, he did. At least he didn't trade DeAndre Hopkins for a second, a fourth on a running back that you don't need.
Yeah, you're right. At this point, hey, I don't want to scare you guys, but based off this progression, what I'm seeing, flipping executives, flipping coaches, maybe in the next year, Howie Roseman, blue and white.
Oh hell no, bro. Yeah, all right. Yeah, you try.
He's the one getting the coffee, man. That's all he's doing.
There still are a very small portion of Colts Nation that hates Chris Ballard. A very small amount that absolutely hate Chris Ballard. Now, I'm not going to be wrong here and say that Ballard has failed to address a few things, aka one of them being quarterback, but he did expect Andrew Luck to be the guy going forward, so I can't necessarily blame him too much for being put in that bad of a situation. But, edge rush has kind of been an issue, things like that. I get that. But, I mean, even Dan Dockich, who's one of the biggest indie media people out there, just still to this day likes to defend Ryan Grigson as the better GM over Chris Ballard simply because Ryan Grigson's win percentage is better as a GM.
Because he had Andrew Luck.
Because he had the generational talent of an Andrew Luck.
That's ridiculous. That's a terrible take.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like, he's a literal, the numbers don't lie. Well, actually, they do. The numbers do lie if you look at them at a completely different standard of that. But
he sounds like a man that looks at box scores and switches between different sitcoms. Like,
yeah, totally. And I'm not even worried about him like calling us out either. He calls out everyone. Like, he even responds to randoms on Twitter sometimes about calling him out as being an idiot for saying that Grigson was a better GM. But and Cody, I want to hear your thoughts on this now. People are still blowing up in the chat about Orlando Brown being traded for the first round pick. Now, here's the thing. I'll give my opinion on it. I do not think it's going to happen for one reason. One, I think ultimately he's going to end up wanting too much money. We're already going to be investing money into Ryan Kelly. And then in next year, we're going to invest money into Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith. And whether or not we go with Mark Lewinsky or not, it doesn't matter. If you invest that kind of money into Orlando Brown, then you have an issue. Now, Orlando Brown did say it's never been about the money to me. It's about being in the right position. If that's true, and Orlando Brown is willing to take a small pay cut for, being a left tackle, if he's willing to take the lowest contract of those guys to make sure that he can be our left tackle for the future, I am 100% on board with it because I know we can do it with the cap. But, if he's going to start demanding $20 million a year because, he's been a Pro Bowler 2 times and he's only 24 years old, I think he's just too good. Honestly, think he's just too good.
I'm out on Orlando Brown for what you just mentioned with the contract. Okay, even if he doesn't want like 20, he's still going to want a substantial amount. You can't pay all these guys at the same time. So
yeah, I know, right?
With how deep this tackle class is, I want to address it that way personally because I think you have the draft capital. You don't necessarily have to go first round. You can. There's some good guys there. You can go second round to get your offensive tackle. I mean, that's how deep.
Or if you want to move back and get that additional, get an additional second round pick and move back into the second round where you still feel you can get the left tackle that you want while also still being able to grab another great player in the second round. That's totally a Ballard thing to do.
Yep. And you don't have to talk about quarterback. That's the big thing.
Thank God. I don't have to talk about it anymore. Thank God. That's a weight off my shoulders. The last few days, I've been refreshing my phone every day. Like, where's this news? Where's this news? Is it coming out yet or not? And like, finally, oh my gosh. Sure, there's a relief off your shoulders too, RB, to finally not have to talk about Carson anymore.
There's a relief. There definitely is. I'm glad it's done with. And now, sinks in the real reality. Where do we go from here? You guys are talking about, let's get a left tackle in the second round. I'm sitting here like, man, we need a whole football team.
Yeah. I mean, you had a left tackle, but the issue is he got hurt. That's the problem.
Oh, yeah. And then someone favored him and brought him back after injury, even though our replacement left tackle, a former rugby player, was playing out of his mind. But we had to
wasn't
justify.
There a petition to just like tell Dillard, screw your ACL, just play anyway? Wasn't there a petition I saw from that?
Dillard's been hurt. I don't even think he's going to be the tackle of the future now. He really hasn't even gotten anything under him. Jordan Mailata was playing this year and was playing out of his mind. He's a former rugby player.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
And Jason Peters came back from injury and was put right back in. And
the amount of times people that I saw this man mention that and get heated over that, I felt so bad for you, RB. I really did. You talked about that man more than anyone else on your podcast for the first couple of weeks of the season because you were that upset about them doing that.
And it's sad because you have a 38-year-old left tackle who's washed. He did great service for us, but he just doesn't have it anymore. And Wentz took beating after beating because of it. And it's just, you'll see, it's a recurring theme in this organization. You know, you pay players higher money. Well, you got to play them. It's sad.
Oh my God, Brandon.
At least
you didn't say Swag Kelly.
Oh man.
Yeah, those people, right?
Oh, I thought we were past that by now.
Okay, RB, I'll ask you. I think honestly, Ballard's probably going to make another big splash at some point in this free agency. Because like you said, you can't address every position in the draft this year. You're going to have to address left tackle. You're going to have to address either corner or edge rush in there as well. If you had to take a guess, what spot in free agency do you think we address the most? Is it edge rush? Is it corner? Would it be a left tackle? What do you think the Colts do?
Well, from listening to you guys, I would get the feeling that you guys need a solid corner on the other side. I think if you put a good defense and you implement a good defensive scheme with Carson Wentz and you keep him off the field, your defense and Carson Wentz gets into a rhythm. I think the defense is a key thing too for Carson Wentz because I don't feel he's ever had really a solid defense like that, except when we went to the Super Bowl and he didn't get to finish the job. So if I'm the Colts, I'm going defense, but that's me.
And receiver, I mean, you know, there's a lot of good receivers that can make that splash too. There's a lot of free agent wide receivers that are on the market this year. So that makes me feel better that I think Ballard's actually going to tap into that because I could probably name like 15 names that I could realistically see Ballard just go straight for. I doubt Allen Robinson because Allen Robinson's going to get paid like $25 million a year, and we're not investing that into a wide receiver. No way now.
No.
No way.
And the Colts are in a pretty good cap situation from what I understand.
Yeah, we have the, the second or third highest cap in the NFL right now, I think.
Crazy.
But, because we haven't signed anybody very much yet. I mean, We're going to have to sign Darius Leonard. We're going to have to sign Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith. There's a couple other names that are thrown out into there as well. And, DeForest Buckner right now is in the middle of a $21 million a year contract as well. So, unfortunately for future sake, Ballard's going to have some decisions to make. But anyway, guys, I think we're going to wrap that up here. Been over an hour. It was great having RB on here. RB, is there any last words you want to say to the Eagles fans in here, to the Colts fans in here about this trade and how we should all look at it?
Yeah, I'll wrap off with this. First off, appreciate you guys bringing me on. Definitely a fun hour, chopping it up as always. We'll probably have to, reignite again sometime this year. But man, in terms of Indianapolis, you guys should be thrilled. You get an opportunity here, and you got a great deal on Carson Wentz. Give the guy a chance, see what he can do. Now, if you're, later on this season, if things aren't going well, yeah, you got a right to have an opinion, of course. But give the guy a chance, change his scenery. I think it's going to do wonders for him, and I think the Colts are going to be a threat. So, however you feel based off of the expectations you had, just try to look at it from the other side and kind of look at what the guy's been through. I think it's going to be a good situation for him.
This is the best comment I've seen today. I'll just finish it. I'll finish it with that. But
there you go.
So 250 of you that came in here and listened to all of us, thank you so much. I honestly think that's like the second most people we've ever had on a stream, other than the last game or the second to last game of the year when we had like 700 of you in here. But thank you to everyone that came in here and chatted with us. Appreciate all of you. And as always, thank you to RB. And as always, guys,